transform economies through sustainable development, the report of the high-level panel of eminent persons on the post-2015 development agenda. And now it's going to 2030, but
exactly
that's what they're trying to do. Yeah, it's exactly what it is, and the
Pope is on board.
It's giving money from the rich countries to the poor countries. It's making everybody equal. You're going to have the top class there, of course. You're going to have the billionaires that are on top, but everybody else is going to be a level above poverty. So instead of having a middle class here and having people over here that are below the poverty line, it's going to be everybody's going to be right around the poverty line, maybe a tiny bit above the poverty line.
What they're doing, what this is a 21st century version of feudalism. That's what they want. See, during the Enlightenment period, we got rid of the monarchies. There's a few kings out in the world. Thailand has a king. Britain has
Thailand
a king.
has a king? I didn't even realize. But a king that controls the country?
No. They're figureheads, and there are certain things that they can do. Like in Thailand, you cannot, at anything, speak negatively about the king. You'll go to jail.
That's fucked up.
But the king doesn't make policy.
There's where
just like in Britain, the king or Queen Elizabeth does not make policy, but she is still the head.
Yeah, she's on the Canadian fucking coins and
she
shit.
is the head of 16 principalities.
And that's I know that's fucking insane when I found that out, and I didn't even know that till like maybe a year ago. I'm like, what the fuck is Queen Elizabeth doing on the fucking Canadian nickel?
Because she owns the land. It's crown land.
It's insane, and most people don't know this. Like I said, I didn't know, and I follow stuff like this.
And see, Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030, the whole thing, sustainability. These are stupid catchphrases because people don't look more into.
Yeah, sustainability, sustainable development. Those are all words that when you hear those, they're scary.
It's moving the world back to feudalism, where you have the count in the castle, the duke in the castle, and everybody else is serfs. Vassals of that king.
What you're saying is the plan, which makes sense, to bring in more and more refugees is to bring down.
Country.
Yeah, is to turn it into like a third world country where you don't have a middle class anymore. You have the majority of people right at the poverty line, essentially.
And one thing I was going to say earlier. This is the reason why you can't get a lot of people to start following the concepts of liberty and standing up against the powers that be, is because 100 million Americans out of 320 receive government benefits to some degree, whether it's Social Security, welfare, Section 8 housing, Medicare, Medicaid. 100 million, 1/3 of the country automatically is beholden to the government.
Well, that's where
the government can always take it away. And there's that fear that if you step out of line against the government, they're going to take it away.
And that's the problem with immigration. The one problem I have is that if you didn't have any social programs or welfare or whatever, then to me it wouldn't really matter. If you want to come into the country, of course, on your own dime, and you got to find your way here and, all that shit, that's fine. I think people should, in theory, I think people should be free to travel wherever they want to travel. But with things like all of these social programs, you can't have people come into the country and start getting welfare. That's insane.
Well, you can if the government says it.
Well, you can. I mean, they do it, but what I'm saying is, it's not something that should be going on.
But you've got to be a realist in this. It does go on.
Well, yeah, I know, but
to the point that it can't be changed So don't focus on the things that you can't change. Focus on the smaller things. As an individual, what can you do with the United States collapsing, the dollar collapsing? What happens when the currency is devalued 70%? What happens if these multinational corporations move offshore like they did under NAFTA and GATT? What can you do? That's the most important thing people have to ask. If you, like I said, if you're going to be Don Quixote charging at windmills and never accomplish anything, then you're just going to have a shortened life of stress, and you're going to be bitter. The point is that
I can get a group of like-minded people, go out to the fucking desert, and
don't have to go to the desert.
Build our own,
but something
thing.
Like this. If the banks have been set up that they're going to bail in your savings account,
I'm not putting any money in the bank. I got a safe deposit box somewhere.
Bingo. So you've got now this. These are the small things. Look, there's an old saying: if you can't fight them, then go John Galt, as Ayn Rand did in Go get out of the system. Take your skills, your talents. Don't get a job working and giving your skills and talents to a corporation.
That I can't get out of right now. So,
but that's the plan is to, that's one of the reasons why I quit working for the city of Mesa, because I got to a certain point that bureaucracies would drive me to the coffin.
Yeah, but are you able to make enough money based off of your, writing articles and the things
now with
you do?
Bars and other things I've done, yeah. But most people, when they have to, most people are in debt. They've got the mortgages. They've got
I was
kids,
in huge debt. I had to borrow money from a relative.
And see, that's how the system also does it. Is they use inflation so that everything costs more. Right now, more than half of the country is paying 50% of their income in rent. The average,
yeah, I know. Luckily, I'm not one of those people.
Now it's 50%. Okay, so if they make it so
are you talking before or after taxes, gross or net income?
Either one.
Well, there's a big difference.
Yeah, but either way, you're going to have to pay your taxes.
So yeah, but I'm saying on that statistic,
let's just use.
Is it based on gross or net income?
We'll use net income. Okay, and then of course with Obamacare,
that just made a huge difference.
Healthcare, if you've got kids and a wife, is shot up the roof. Food has gone up 30% since 2008.
I did a whole show about this, and I've said before. I'm not going to say exactly, but I've said that, combined, me and my fiance make over 100,000, not that much over, but a little over. And I don't understand how people afford shit.
Right.
Because we're sitting here, that's before taxes, of course, but I don't understand how people afford anything. So yeah, I see what they have done is basically. And you could take it from the point of, they wanted it to be where both parents had to work. So the government essentially owns your kids. You got your government babysitters, and then they bring them up, and it's fucking it's insane. It really is.
Now you did it, because the part of the problem is that we are in a self-gratification mode, and that's what brought about the housing bubble.
Well, I'm not in a self-gratification mode. I'm in a angry.
You don't have to take this in a personal thing. We're talking about the vast majority of people and the trend of the demographics.
Right.
Let me give you an example. Here's an example. The mortgage rate that you do for your house. For the longest time, it used to be tied to the 30-year Treasury note. That was the interest rate that was tied to mortgages, because people would get a 30-year mortgage. Well, people still get a 30-year mortgage, but your interest rate is not tied to the 30-year Treasury bond. It's tied to the 10-year Treasury bond. That's what the interest rate for your mortgage is now tied to. Why? Because so few people keep their homes for more than 5 or 10 years anymore. Well, when did that start happening?
Why don't you just get a fixed rate a fixed interest rate that will always be the same.
Well, you can do that, but the point is that you get no equity in your home. You are reliant upon home prices getting in, going higher and higher and higher in a bubble like we had in 2006, 2007. But before 2004, when the housing bubble really started, housing prices were relatively stable for a long period of time. It was only when the Fed started putting in more money.
Pretty much until that point, right? I mean, I don't think, and tell me if I'm wrong, as far as I know, there was never a crash like that.
There was one.
Yeah, but okay. How bad was it, and when was it?
It was the late 70s, and it was that's part of the reason why Volcker had to take the interest rate and shoot it up to 21%.
Well, speaking of the interest rate, they were talking today on some whatever, just local
CNBS.
News. Well, just that you know how you have like the news reports in between, like I think it was Mark Levin and it was probably Fox News, just the news reports in between that, the unemployment rate went down, so they're going to consider hiring the interest rate. The Fed is so.
Yeah, well, that was the mainstream media.
Yeah, and, I know. They're not going to do it.
Guess what? We heard these exact same things in September.
Yeah. How many times?
And
right.
I believe I told you that they would not raise it, didn't I?
So we only got about 20 minutes left. I do want to get back to the Middle East, but is there anything else that you think is more important that you want to cover? Or
one of the biggest things is that about late August, the IMF sent people over to China to see about bringing the Chinese yuan into the SDR basket of currencies.
From where is the IMF?
The IMF is in Brussels. I believe Brussels.
Germany?
Yeah. Now, the IMF sent over representatives to China to check out their currency, check out their banking system, check out their reforms. They came back after 3 days and said, China is doing pretty well. We want to bring them in, but they're not ready yet, and we're going to readdress this a year from now.
Wait, so was this before China? When was this?
This was August.
August of this year. So China had already opened their new World Bank that with all the BRICS countries,
Correct.
Right?
Correct. But
China was never in the IMF?
No, China is in the IMF. As a matter of fact, China is the only country that's actually funding the IMF. The U.S. hasn't funded the IMF in 2 years. The point is that the Chinese yuan is not internationalized. You know how the dollar.
So wait, let me, because I think I missed something here. Let me go back. So what you said is they went to China to talk about the yuan being the reserve currency.
No, in a sense, okay. The IMF
or the yen or whatever it is.
The IMF has its own currency. It's called special drawing rights. When a country borrows money from the IMF, they actually are given special drawing rights currency. That currency is backed by a basket of other currencies: the yen, the pound, the euro, and the dollar. So when a country like say Argentina needs to borrow money from the IMF, they'll get a number of different currencies. Say like they borrow $20 billion worth of currencies. They'll get maybe $10 billion worth of dollars, $3 billion worth of euros, whatever. It's a basket of currencies.
Okay.
So
you're saying when they borrow money from the IMF?
Yeah, when they borrow money from the IMF.
Them being any government?
Yeah. The IMF's SDR is not for local use. It's not for citizens to start using for consumer goods.
Right. I realize that. It's only countries that they give loans to.
Exactly.
And a lot of times they want to control, like with the Ukraine, where they were going to bail them out, but they wanted to take control over certain things within the country.
Correct.
So
when
they're
when the IMF gives money, they make demands.
Yeah.